Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast. I'm Ethan Sargent, Nate Crowley here alongside me, and we're not quite there yet, but we are starting to make our way out of the doldrums of the offseason. Today, we are recording this on Tuesday, July 28th, 2026, and that is officially the first day of Bengals training camp. Everybody is back. I do not believe there are any holdouts. Every single player that is on the Bengals roster at the moment is in camp, which is great news. It is good to see everybody in, and it's exciting to have everybody back in the building after what's been as we've talked about many times, a long and relatively uneventful offseason in Cincinnati with one major exception in the trade for Dexter Lawrence. Ayden, what's the feeling as we are rapidly approaching football? This past Sunday, or this upcoming Sunday, I believe, is the last Sunday without a football game for the entirety of 2026.
I'm just ready for it to start, to be honest with you. This offseason, which is a good thing, has just been so extremely boring.
Yep.
There's really not been a whole lot going on. I think the recent mock turtle soup that just went down, with Zach Taylor and all the coordinators and Duke Tobin, was also extremely boring. Which is a good thing. Again, at the end of the day, it's a good thing, but it just makes me eager for the actual football to start because I'm over conversations about offensive linemen, tackle three, CB4. I'm kind of over those
Yeah.
conversations. I'm ready to just spot the ball and go.
Yeah, I'm ready to spot the ball. I'm right with you. Let's play football. And we are closing in. The Bengals will play Detroit in preseason game number 1. And as I quickly pull up that game, I believe it is, I believe 2 weeks from Thursday. So it is August 13th, 7 o'clock at Paycor Stadium. The Bengals will host the Lions. And it's actually I believe it's a primetime game. It's on like one of the prime slots. It'll be live on national television, so a chance for some Bengals guys to get some tread. Who knows who we'll actually see in that game, but a good opportunity for a lot of Bengals to get a lot of good opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about usually what is typically a very eventful day. Mock Turtle Soup Day has become famous amongst Bengal journalists now for the typically fiery press conferences. Typically, you get some big news drops, but yesterday, as has been the theme of the offseason, it was a pretty quiet day. I think the biggest news might have been who didn't speak for the first time since Mock Turtle Soup Day has been a thing. Owner and president of the team, Mike Brown, did not speak at Mock Turtle Soup Day. He is 91 years old. He did present the high school coach award to, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but the head coach at Anderson High School received that award. Anderson was Division II state champions in Ohio last year. So interesting to see him not talk. Usually, a guy who loves to speak, Mike Brown, but again, past the age of 90, he's not a young buck no more. And you're really seeing, I think, the biggest takeaway from that, and you've seen it really throughout this offseason, I think, is we're really seeing a changing of the guard happen here in real time, right? Katie Blackburn, Elizabeth Blackburn, Duke Tobin, those are your figureheads of the organization right now. And Mike Brown, yes, it's still his money, it's still his team, but as we've kind of talked about over these last couple of years, he's really starting to truly take that step back. And we say all that until he shows up on the training golf cart in a couple days and probably pulls Joe Burrow in for a chat after a particular practice session.
Well, Duke Tobin literally said, quote, he's there every day. He takes a vacation at 5 or 6 o'clock every day. That's his only vacation. So at 91, my man's still kicking. He's still doing his thing. I don't think he wanted to talk because I don't know what he wanted to say. Like he can't call out Carson Palmer anymore.
Nope.
That was all going on, and that was all famous when Mike really did his thing for that. So. I think he's chilling this year, He's kind of sitting back and he's like, this is kind of nice. I can just watch the boys go out and play. I don't got to worry about if Jamar is going to sit out, if T is going to
Yep.
sit out, if Jesse Bates is going to sit out, if Trey Hendrickson's going to sit out.
Yep.
Like we can play football. I think that's Mike Brown's way of saying, you know what? Again, spot the ball. I think he's ready to rock.
That seems to be kind of the vibe that I get in the organization right now. And I think that's the reason why we're getting such a quiet kind of thing in terms of the way that the Bengals are going about it. I don't think there was a lot of people in the organization that particularly liked the media storm that surrounded them last offseason, right? And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why, right? When you have everything that was going on with Trey Hendrickson and you have even the Shamar Stewart stuff that blew up and went crazy. By the way, I want to say something real quick about that. Fernando Mendoza signed his contract 3 days ago. Not a mention of that in the news. Like nobody cared. Everybody cared about
Yeah,
Shamar. Uh,
I don't know. I just think that the perception around the Bengals front office is different than everybody else, and they've built that reputation, in my opinion.
they haven't
So
done themselves any favors.
there's a little bit of
Absolutely.
that. There's a little bit of that, which again, I think is somewhat warranted. But at the same time, like people in the know, I think in Bengals camp, the people that cover it every day, like there wasn't gonna be I don't know. There wasn't going to be a huge issue, in my opinion, in terms of like it was going to get done. I think that was the sense. Now, if you bought into some of the nonsense and you factor in the stuff that was going on with Trey Hendrickson, it was very easy to kind of point and talk about it. Versus the Raiders, who obviously they have Kirk Cousins as the guy who's presumably going to be taking a lot of snaps early on.
Yeah.
So like that's position's kind of solidified. And again, the feeling is that it was just going to get done. They don't have the circus going on that the Bengals did that past offseason. So I think that just kind of got lumped into everything else going on. I think context at the end of the day matters for a lot of that
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. And I think when you look at the public side of it for Shamar, you didn't have Fernando Mendoza publicly saying, "Yeah, I'm not going to
Right.
play," right? I think that also definitely has a big part of it. But yeah, Mike Brown didn't talk, which was very interesting because he kind of made this whole event is a Mike Brown thing. Like he kind of brought this back when he took over the team from his dad back in the 90s. He was like, "Yeah, I want to talk. I want to talk about football." And obviously, he's dealt with some health issues, some hearing stuff. And we'll see if he talks again in the future, but did not speak at yesterday's mock turtle soup day event. A couple of small updates about that. Only one big time injury right now for the Bengals coming into camp, and that is defensive tackle BJ Hill. He'll start out camp on the PUP, physically unable to perform list, with an ankle injury that he had, a surgery that he had in the offseason. But it was all positive from the Bengals front office yesterday when talking about the status of BJ Hill. They're saying he is very close to a full return, and they are just easing him in. There's no game next week, no reason to rush him back. And I don't think that this will be something that has any impact on BJ Hill's week 1 status. We talked about it a second ago, and it's I think important to mention no holdouts. That's a big deal for this team in particular. That's a big deal, right? Now, that's not to say that there won't be any movement on that side of the coin for the Bengals in terms of contract extensions. We've talked about it in the past couple of weeks and months. DJ Turner seems to be close or closing in on that new contract. And now that everybody's in the building, this is typically the time of year where the Bengals like to get their deals done, right? You've got 4 players that I think the Bengals would, in an ideal world, if they had unlimited cap, they'd like to extend all 4 of them. Probably not going to be able to extend all 4 of them. It is DJ Turner, it is Dax Hill, it is Miles Murphy, and it is Chase Brown. All 4 are extension eligible this offseason. We've kind of had this discussion a couple times before about what direction the Bengals go. Seems like Turner's just going to be the top check mark on that list, and then you have whatever money you have left for those other 3 guys, and it gets really interesting when you break down some of the numbers. So the big thing, Ayden, is no distractions, but how do the Bengals make the money work?
Well, I think again, you just have to kind of prioritize certain guys, and you have to, they probably do have a list internally of like who they need to get done first, and then all the other dominoes and all the other money kind of falls into place. In a perfect reality, you hope that certain guys are willing to maybe take a little bit less in order to keep the whole band together. I don't foresee that happening because at the end of the day, like get your money. Like you earned it. You want to go out there and get paid. So I don't foresee that happening. But from the Bengals camp, you have to be proactive, which is something that they don't typically do. And then you have to be smart about who you want to give that money to. I found the conversation around corner in the cornerback room kind of interesting. That was one of the things that kind of stood out to me a little bit. Was the first thing first. They dispelled anything about kicking Dax back inside. I think that's pretty
Yep.
obvious. I think you have your two best guys on the outside and DJ and Dax this year, and that's where they're going to play. That's where they want to play. So that wasn't too
For sure.
surprising. As far as CB3 and the nickel, it seemed like Duke and Al Golden were kind of still up in the air. Like we talked about, it's Jalen Davis's spot, it seems like for now, but they were even kind of talking about who really knows. There's just a lot of they didn't say this, but in my my assessment, it's a whole lot of mid right now, and they got to figure
Yeah.
out even if it's externally. Duke kind of put those to bed, but Paul Dannard has talked about a potential move potentially for the Bengals is to trade for more cornerback depth, which
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
I
too
think
shocked.
Jasir Taylor is also a part of that equation. Signed from the Chargers this past offseason. I think that he'll factor into that secondary as well. And then the Bengals have some good safety depth as well. Obviously, it always helps to have Geno Stone off of your roster. And then you've got Jordan Battle. You've got Brian Cook, obviously coming over from Kansas City, and then Kyle Duggar as well. I think that's a solid safety room. I think you've got three solid starter-ish level players. And yes, Duggar's a little bit different of a profile, a little bit down, closer to the box. But and that could be huge, very helpful. Duggar is a very good run defending safety. The Bengals will need that at a lot of big times this year. An interesting comment, just keeping up with training camp news and updates, and this relates to DJ Turner. Christian Gonzalez commented earlier today, obviously very highly rated corner for the New England Patriots. He's also extension eligible, and this may well, I'm not sure how much it may affect it, but it may well affect the cornerback market in general. Robert Kraft said on Saturday that he had made an offer to Christian Gonzalez's camp that he was going to make Christian Gonzalez the highest paid cornerback in the NFL based on average annual value. And Gonzalez gave a classic media response. We're going to keep it out of the media. So that's one to watch. I think if you're a Bengals fan looking to see a DJ Turner extension, keep an eye on that Christian Gonzalez contract because I'm not saying that Turner's going to surpass that or anything. I'm just saying it's something worth keeping an eye on in terms of how NFL teams are valuing cornerbacks that are playing at a very high level.
Yeah, I mean Christian Gonzalez, in my opinion, he's the second best corner in the league. I think it goes Pat Surtain, then Christian Gonzalez. I think he's that good. So I would expect when Robert Kraft says he's going to get paid as the highest cornerback in the league, that doesn't shock me too much. So is DJ Turner going to reset the market? No. But does it add you know, 4 million onto his deal more because that ceiling gets pushed up a little bit more. It could. And again, that's where the proactiveness needs to kind of come into play. I think for a lot of Bengals contract extensions that just don't necessarily happen. But I think that figure will be really interesting because we did this earlier. It's Pat, right? Who's the highest paid corner in the
Yes,
league
it
right
is Pat
now.
Surtain.
So
Yes.
yeah, I think Christian Gonzalez is more than earned his payday for sure.
Yeah, and it's another interesting thing to keep up with this offseason because there are a lot of big time players that are going to get big time extensions here over the next couple weeks. Two big running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, both going to get big time money, probably from their own teams. And this will be an interesting thing to see how running back get evaluated because again, Chase Brown is extension eligible. Is Chase Brown going to get that kind of money like those two guys? Absolutely not. Is Chase Brown a great player that deserves to get paid? Absolutely. So keep an eye on some of those things. Puka Nacua as well in terms of the wide receiver market. He is extension eligible. And actually one that just came down a couple of moments ago. I just popped this open on my phone. Defensive tackle market. Listen to this money for Jalen Carter in Philadelphia.
Oh, I can
4
only
years,
imagine.
$152 million, 106 guaranteed. The Bengals look smarter and smarter every day with the Dexter Lawrence trade plus pseudo extension. I mean, that looks like an absolute bargain right about now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Jalen Carter,
Great football player.
in my opinion, is the best
Head case, but a good
interior
football player.
interior defensive lineman in the league. And again, I if you want to know what the league is valuing, just follow the money. And the defensive interior market has exploded over the past 4 or so years just because it has become so important. I think as a result, the offensive interior market is also going to, in turn, rise up here soon. They're in two different situations. Obviously, Jalen Carter is how old? 25. And so I think that plays into it. Obviously, it does. But again, like you were saying, I think the deal looks great, especially with what Simmons just got paid in Tennessee.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people were trying to say that the Bengals overpaid for Dexter Lawrence. I just
They
don't
underpaid by a
understand that.
lot.
Now, in some other news, I'll be interested to see what Vita
Was
Vea
just about
gets
to bring that up. Absolutely.
gets turned for. You would have to imagine Tampa Bay is going to ask for nothing short than what the
What the
Bengals gave
Giants
up
asked
for
for.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
It has to be something similar. So I'll be interested to see what that conversation is
No,
like.
Vita Vea, multi-time All-Pro defensive tackle, requested a trade from Tampa Bay yesterday. And it's not the only interesting contract situation that Tampa Bay has to deal with right now because Baker Mayfield also doesn't seem to be too thrilled with his contract situation. So a lot for that front office to deal with. Of course, the Bengals' week one opponent as well. So something to keep an eye on there. A lot of big contract situations around the league. It's going to be a very interesting couple of weeks here. Now that everybody's back in camp, today was the first day that all 32 teams were back fully in camp.
I got a
It's
question
going to
before we
be,
move on, Ethan.
yeah,
A little trivia that I think is very obvious
let's
based
do
on
it.
our conversation.
Let's do it.
There are two players with at least 50, and in one person's case, 60 pressures from the nose tackle
I
spot
know
over
it.
the last 3 seasons. Who are they? They're
I've seen it. It is
Dexter
Dexter Lawrence
Lawrence
and it is
and
Vita
Vita
Vea.
Vea. They're one
Send a
A and
send
one B.
send next year's second round. Let's just murder everybody on the inside.
I don't think we have the facilities for that.
I
I don't
don't
think
think so either,
we,
but it
we
would
can
be
kiss
fun.
we can kiss Turner, we can kiss Dax, we can kiss all those guys
Yeah,
goodbye
they're
if
all
we do a
gone.
deal like
They're
that.
all
But hey,
gone. Speaking of corners, by the way, if we're talking about contract situations, keep an eye on Devin Witherspoon in Seattle as well. That's another big time corner name that I think Witherspoon and Gonzalez, it might be a little bit of a race to see who gets done first. Remember, we did this with the Bengals with Burrow and Herbert, right? Where Herbert got paid first, and then the Bengals then had to pay Burrow a little bit more because Herbert resets the market. Newly ringed up Justin Herbert, by the way. Congratulations to him. Probably the only ring he'll ever get in his career.
I was
But
just about to say.
he's got a very nice wife in Madison Beer, so congratulations, or I guess a fiance at the moment. It's not done yet. Just wait till she meets Peyton Brooker. Um, Devin Witherspoon, I think, is going to be a big time. Like, I just think it's going to be really interesting to see who gets that deal first, right? Will Witherspoon get it done first, or will Gonzalez get it done first? Because I think either one, probably what I think 25 a year plus a year for either of those guys. Again, and Turner's not going to get that money. That's not something the Bengals need to worry about. But it's going to increase the average annual value, right? It's going to increase. Like if Turner's asking, let's say Turner's asking for 19 now, and then Witherspoon gets paid 25, and then Gonzalez gets paid 26 and a half. All of a sudden, Turner's like, maybe I deserve 20, maybe I deserve 21, and that's it all factors in. So I think the Bengals, you want to crack down, get this one done. Worry about the other three guys maybe a little bit later on in camp. But those are the interesting situations. Now, let's talk a little bit about what to look for in camp as we get into day one. Everybody in the building, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, both posted long Instagram things, excited about the how their offseason went. I thought Jamar's little video that he posted was very interesting. He seemed to be very excited about how his offseason went. Seemed to be really upbeat about where this team is at, and that's been the whole vibe throughout camp. These guys are about as locked in as I think we've seen. And that's been the expression to the media. Obviously, it's not always what they say is what it feels like, but it really feels like that's how it is right now. The positivity is as high as it's been since those Super Bowl years. So what are some big things to watch here over these next? Give me two or three talking points that we're obviously now we're going to get rolling here with camp, and there's going to be a lot to discuss. What are some big talking points to look for here as the Bengals get rolling here outside Baker Stadium on the grass?
What does Shamar Stewart look like? I think that's a very interesting conversation. I think he's kind of an X factor for this defense that not a lot of people are talking about, and maybe deservingly so. He didn't really give a lot to talk about other than the off the field stuff last season. He was kind of banged up. He never really got a full offseason of work. I think it kind of showed at the start. And so there was just a lot happening with him. I've loved how quiet it's been about him, but at the same time, I hope he pops because I think if he does, it transforms what this defense is really able to do. And then I think that one of the more obvious low-hanging fruits is just Demetrius Knight, Barrett Carter. What do they look like? Do they look
Yep.
like they've taken a step? Um, Al Golden at Mock Turtle Soup again. a roaring backing of those two, saying that he doesn't know many coordinators that wouldn't want two second-year players with 100 plus tackles coming back. Now, that paints half the picture of what happened last year. But again, these are two guys that had all the work put on them, all the responsibility of communication. Carter wearing the green dot, yada 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 yada. I just I need them to take a step forward. Everybody needs them to take a step forward. I think they will, based off of who's in front of them now. But those are the two things I'm looking at.
Yeah, those are I think two huge points. I think you need, I think need is an understatement with the two linebackers in particular. I mean, you cannot afford for those guys to not play to standard because it is going to brutalize your defense if your linebackers aren't playing up to par. And they don't even like again, you don't need like prime Logan Wilson like at the at the peak of his career, he was I think an all Pro Bowl level, and he he kind of fell off a little bit and that's okay, but they don't need that, right? They need just decent. Like it just needs to be starter level. You don't need to be a Pro Bowler, but 120 tackles would be great, but more consistency, I think, is what those two need in particular, and that's why training camp's so important. It's getting those reps against, again, you go against these guys all this is you see the camp fisticuffs, the camp the little battles, the little jawing, all that, because this is how you build championship teams. It's the back and forth now that helps you build it. There are two things I'm looking at in particular. Number one is I want to see, and this is something that I'm not sure how much of this we're actually going to see. But where does the offense evolve to? We did a whole episode about this a couple of weeks ago about how this offense can evolve. We talked about Joe Burrow under center. We talked about more dynamism, more big plays, which has been, it's weird to say, but it's something the Bengals lacked last year was the big play. So how can the Bengals be more dynamic? I'm sure they're going to try some things out. What can the Bengals put on film now in camp that they can learn from and build upon for the preseason and then the regular season? And then on the defensive side, we talked about it a little bit earlier, so I won't go super deep into it. But CB3, I think is obviously a huge battle, very very important. And then I'm looking at the defensive line position or the defensive edge position specifically, because you don't really have an alpha at the top of that group anymore, right? With Trey Hendrickson being gone. Yes, Miles Murphy played much better down the stretch, but aside from that, you've got a lot of guys who are just kind of fiending for an opportunity, right? Like Ayden said, like a Shamar Stewart, a Cedric Johnson, perhaps some other guys that are going to be looking and trying to get opportunities. Boye Mafe now into that group as well. It's a lot of really talented players. How does it come together? Who separates themselves as the starters for week one? That's a battle I'm keeping my eye on.
Yeah, I think right now, like if you had to have betting odds, I mean, Boye Mafe is getting paid like the top guy. I think he will be
Hmm.
the top guy. Like again, the analytically, what he did in Seattle last year was really impressive given his play time and everything. And you hope with more that more comes. And now you gotta go out there and see it. I do find it your comments about Jamar Chase being energized and everything, like I I don't know. Like he's the best wide receiver in the league. I think it's not even close. It's not even a conversation really anymore with Justin
We talked
Jefferson coming off
about
the
a
season
couple
last
weeks
year.
ago when we did we talked about those number one lists and they hadn't done receivers yet. Jamar Chase was number one and it was a runaway. Like it wasn't
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
And
And,
I
and
think that
so
just goes to tell you, right?
I'm so like I'm curious about his career path. Like if he continues the way that he's going, like he can enter some conversations, I think.
Okay.
Um,
Absolutely.
Obviously he doesn't necessarily have the accolades that a guy like Jerry Rice has, and Randy Moss
Tough to get
obviously at
there.
the peak of his powers was Randy Moss, but like I think we need to start talking about Jamar Chase a little differently, in my personal opinion. If he has another season like he has the past two seasons, and I know the system's built for him, and I know he has Joe Burrow, he's one of the greatest to ever do it. I don't think
He's
that's a stretch to say.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can. And this is the interesting thing now. The new talking point on like if you're on social media space or anything is oh Burrow is only as good as he is because of Jamar. People have just stopped like trying to bring down
Right.
Jamar because there is no bringing down Jamar.
Right.
Like you can't like now they're just using it to tear down Burrow, which we all know is not true. But like Jamar Chase is just so. unbelievably good. He's in a class of his own, right? And it's not to say that this league doesn't have unbelievable receivers. Look at his running mate at LSU. Look at, what the NFC West has right now with Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith and Jigba, Offensive Player of the Year, right? What Jamar Chase has been able to do as a Cincinnati Bengal he's already up there. Like I think, like you said, one or two more seasons, he's probably the best receiver in franchise history, and he's 25, 26 years old. That receivers can
And
have
that's what and
look at
that's what the franchise that's had Ocho, that's had
very good receiver
T.O. for not
heritage.
long, but
Absolutely.
AJ Green, we've had guys. I think for me the biggest thing, and you talk about it a little bit, like I feel like he's added something to his game every offseason, which for a guy that good to continue to improve, I think is scary. And I just think it comes
Yeah.
down to his work ethic and what he's able to. I just don't think that those kinds of things with Jamar, I don't think are talked about enough, because he is just so freaking talented. Like he's so gifted, but he
Yeah.
worked harder than I think a lot of guys on the team.
Yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase's career stats he will be 26 entering the 2026 NFL season. 520 receptions, 6,837 yards for a 13.1 yard per catch average, 54 touchdowns. I mean, that is like franchise great good in 5 years, right?
Mhm.
It's pretty ridiculous what he's able to do. Somebody, I mean, look, I know a lot of, Joe Burrow actually in one of his offseason that mentioned that he wants to get that Bengals touchdown record from Andy Dalton, which is 48 from 2015. Joe Burrow is targeting that record this year. And if he does, Jamar Chase is probably going to have like 15 plus of them, right? He had 17 in that year in 2024 where he should have, I'm just going to say it right now. I don't care how good Saquon was. He should have been the offensive player of the year. And I think that when you look at what the body of work that he has put out, and again, 5 seasons where he's only missed 4 games, right? He had that little injury in 2022, still got to 1,000 yards, by the way, and was able to just what he's done. I mean, yeah, I think Aiden's 100% right. You got to start talking about him a different kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not breaking any news by saying Jamar Chase is good. Everybody knows he's good.
Got
I,
it,
I
right?
just I don't think it's appreciated just how good he's been. Like I think that again, the conversation needs to be about, some other guys that have already hung him up versus some guys in the league right now, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's made a Pro Bowl every year. He's at 1,000 yards every year, right? You talk about, I mean, the only receivers to do that before, AJ Green did it when he came into the league, right? I think did Julio do it? I think Julio might have done it early with the 1,000 yard streak. But you talk about like putting it all together, right? Longevity, right? Consistency, explosiveness. And I think you mentioned the adding stuff too, and I wanted to like go back to that because yeah, we know the highlights, the deep balls, right? The spectacular catches. He's got it all, right? But then it's those little things, right? The 3rd and 9 where Joe can just dump it down and he's got to make 2 guys miss, and all of a sudden it's an 11-yard gain. It's a first down, right? Not a lot of guys in the NFL that can pull that off and get the deep balls as well, right? He's in his own stratosphere. He really is, and it's just the level of play that he has. And again, I think like look, he's already at such a crazy pace for his career and a couple more of these big time years and he's getting real close to some real tough, I think for the modern NFL fan, tough conversations. So speaking of some interesting conversations for we were talking about Baker Mayfield earlier. It just got reported by Adam Schefter that Baker Mayfield and the Bucks have actually sliced off all contract talks. So it seems like Baker Mayfield just said, "All right, I'm just going to go out there and be great." So
There's one of
proving
two ways this can go, and we all
which
know.
he did it once to his credit. Baker did
Yep.
it once, and he earned himself the first paycheck in Tampa Bay. But now, how old is Baker Mayfield now? 31, 32 years
So I was
old.
gonna say 31, maybe. I
Um,
don't know. I have no
he's
idea.
he's been injured many times. That shoulder is not 100%. And I think you look at what he's been able to do, and yes, I would say he's been good in Tampa Bay, but has he been great? Has he broken into that next level? Don't think so. So, you get to that tough conversation and probably an interesting decision as to, why Tampa has to do it. So I assume now Baker Mayfield will be back in Ohio week number 1. No holdouts or anything like that. But um, yeah, an interesting situation for Tampa. Again, the Bengals week 1 opponent.
Baker Mayfield is just for me like I've never really liked him.
Mm,
Maybe that's because he was in Cleveland or whatever.
mm.
He just has this like I guess aura around him, and that's obviously a different slang term now, but he just has this thing about him where he's the victim all the time. He's the underdog all the time. He's somebody who is overlooked somehow, I think, in his eyes. And it makes no sense to me. He was the number one pick in the draft. He was a Heisman hopeful at Oklahoma. He was a guy
Yep.
who won where he was at. He was the number one pick. I guess he went to Cleveland and that like gave him this underdog mentality or whatever. I just I'm not here for it. I really am not. I don't like this at all. And this is just more motivation that will feed into that. And it's like, dude, you're 31 years old. You were awful to end this past season. Like
It was rough.
I think that's maybe more of the conversation around your play rather than the fact that you're some underdog that everybody underappreciates. I just don't know. I'm not a Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield fan. I'm not.
No, I'm not a huge Baker guy either. I mean, yeah, he kind of got us a couple times in Cleveland.
He
But
loved playing the Bengals. He loved playing the
he
Bengals.
did. He did. And it'll be I'm sure he'll take it personally, right? In Cincinnati again, even though really there is no personal with him anymore. And we'll see, right? The Bucks are a good team, right? The Bengals cannot overlook them in any way. It's a tough game at home. We know how the Bengals have been in week one, and it's not going to be easy, but the
Vibes
Bengals
aren't
have got
great.
Dexter Lawrence now. They got a
Yeah, the vibes in Tampa just aren't good. It feels like we're
no.
flip-flopped. Like normally, like whoever's playing the Bengals week one is like, oh, awesome. Like Trey hates his life in Cincinnati. Jamar's holding out. Like, oh, this is gonna be great. It's different. Vita Veda's requesting a trade. Baker and Tampa aren't seeing eye to eye. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I was kind of nervous about the week one matchup. I think Tampa takes a step back this year anyway. I think they've gotten older in pretty much every spot. But I think this kind of tempers my expectations a little bit for that game. I think you feel more confident than you did
Yeah.
yesterday, honestly, with all
Yeah, you
said and done.
gotta it had not if potentially as long as it all, we'll see if maybe Tampa figures something out, but not having to play Vita Vea would be. I know Ted Karras, Dylan Fairchild, and Dalton Risner in particular will be breathing big sighs of relief not having to deal with one of the bigger menaces on the inside in the NFL. We got a couple minutes left, Aiden. Last question here before we wrap things up. Two, three, four, however many Bengals with the most to prove and the most to lose in training camp in 2026.
Okay, interesting. I like this question. I think one is Jalen Davis, just because I think he has a starting spot. And if there is a guy who's going to lose a starting spot this training camp, it is going to be Jalen Davis. Obviously at that nickel corner position, which is just going to be, hey guys, go out there and do it, figure it out.
Yeah,
So that's number one. Number two, I think is DJ Turner, but for none of the reasons on the field stuff. I think it has to be contractually what that looks like if he's able to get an extension done. So those two guys I'm looking at. And then again, I do think Shamar Stewart has an opportunity to really kind of come into his own this offseason and show why he was, touted as a top 20 pick in the NFL draft. And that is because all the physical tools that he has.
yeah,
Honestly, none of the guys on the offense really, I think, are worthy of a lot of this because you have all 11 coming back. I mean, maybe you can make a conversation around a guy like Eric All and what
yeah,
he's able to do fully healthy.
yeah,
But other than that, like tight end three is the conversation, I guess.
yeah.
You're in a good spot.
Yeah, I'm excited. We talked about Eric All. We did like a whole 10-minute segment on him a few weeks ago, and I think he's a big name. I'm excited to see him get on the field. I think those first couple reps for him are going to be big, just getting in the swing, feeling that knee, making sure it feels 100%, and just working on it. And I know the Bengals are going to take it very easy with Eric All. It's going to be baby steps for him throughout the offseason. Even though he has a full clear, he's been cleared. He'll probably be on the field in about an hour or two whenever the Bengals get going. But I think it's going to be important for him to just kind of ease into the swing of things, nothing too extensive, and just don't put as much pressure on that knee. I've got a couple of names I want to bring up. We talked about them earlier, so I'm not going to go too in deep. The two linebackers, you've got to play well. The depth behind them on this room right now is Oren Burks and Shaka Hayward. That's not good enough either. So those two better bone up. Or there is a possibility that the Bengals might look at like a Bobby Wagner, for example, or a Bobby Okereke, who are both still external free agents. Could the Bengals do that if one or both of those guys aren't up to par? Sure, maybe it's a possibility. We'll see. So I think those two guys have a lot on their plate. We already extensively talked about the role that they're going to play in this offseason. How about Cody Ford? I think he's got a whole lot to lose in this training camp, right? They mentioned yesterday that Zach Taylor said yesterday that he's the leader in the clubhouse at the moment for that swing tackle position. But I think there's going to be a couple guys. How about Jalen Coker? He's going to be right behind him for that spot. A couple other of these new draft picks, maybe like a Connor Liu, or excuse me, not a Connor Liu, but like a Brian Parker, maybe might be looking. Jalen Rivers might be in this discussion to try and be in that swing tackle spot. So keep an eye on Cody Ford to keep an eye on that swing tackle position. And then how about Tacario Davis? I think he's got a very unique opportunity, Tacario Davis. I don't think they're going to ask him to start. I think they're going to give Tacario Davis, we talked about this when we drafted him, a very specific package for Tacario Davis. He's going to come in on nickel and dime, specifically, I think dime sets where the Bengals are looking to have 60 Bs on the field, and he is going to be a tight end player. I really think that's how they're going to use him here in year one. I think his role may expand in the future, but I think for right now, I think that they're going to use him kind of like it's always funny for me to say this name because if you were to say this name in Seattle, you might get like killed because of how much they hate him. But Trey Flowers for the Bengals was a very good tight end stopper. He did exactly what the Bengals asked him to do, right? He was not very good as an outside corner in Seattle, but he did his job for the Bengals as a tight end stopper. I think that Trey Flowers role is exactly what they're going to ask Cardio Davis to do this year.
I'll be interested because I just think DJ Ivy was so good at it last year. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot of belief, I think in the locker room in DJ Ivy. Now the difference is DJ Ivy was a seventh round pick, and Decario Davis is a third round pick, and the
Yep.
talent is different. But I think until then, it's DJ Ivy's spot. But I think Decario, if he impresses and shines in camp, like this is kind of the guy that you're invested in the future, and I wouldn't be shocked if they think about that.
Absolutely. And also, this is not really in terms of on the field, but leadership. Who steps up? Who steps up into leadership roles, right? Joe Burrow talked about wanting to be a more vocal leader this year, right? He's always been kind of a lead from the front kind of guy. Like, I'm going to do it with my actions, not my words. I think he's going to be more vocal this year, more front. Dexter Lawrence coming in right off the jump, right? Wanting to be like a leader already in this locker room. Another guy who's coming in, and Brian Cook, right? I think he's going to step up into a leadership role. Who else steps up into those roles?
Don't be shocked when Barrett Carter is wearing a C on his chest this upcoming season. I think Barrett, that might be my hot take. I think Barrett Carter is a
I don't
captain.
hate that take at all. I really don't.
I really do think Barrett Carter is a captain this year.
I think he's earned. I do think that Barrett Carter. I think both of these guys in particular, but I think in particular Carter have earned a lot of respect because they went through the fire, right? I don't think any of them would tell you differently, right? That they dealt with a brutal year last year. They were under immense scrutiny. They did not play up to standard, but they put the work in this offseason. And a lot of NFL guys will respect when you understand that you didn't have a great year and you messed up and you put your head down and work. And I love that take. I think I can very, very much see Barrett Carter again, a young player, by the way, only 22 years old, having a C on his chest. So lots to
Yep.
discuss.
Hey, real quick before we go, if you want to know what the vibes are in Tampa Bay right now, I am currently looking at a jersey swap that a Bucks fan put on Twitter of Brendan Sorsby in a Bucks jersey. Those are the vibes.
Brendan
And
Sorsby,
it
you
says,
see legend.
wake me up when it's a new era."
Is sports gambling legal in Florida?
It's not looking good. It's not
Oh
looking good in
no.
Tampa.
Oh no. Well, and we'll see what's going on in Tampa. Hopefully the Bengals can put the leather on in week number one and then turn to a much tougher test potentially in the Houston Texans in week two. But we'll discuss all of that and more in our reactions from week one at camp next week as we keep it rolling here on the Jungle Fever Podcast.